Hello guys, good morning. Francisco Nino here, Cloud Solution Team. Today I'm going to help you learn how to check the space on the GVAP databases. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to do that with Tayrona. Let me share my screen. I have previously installed Tayrona already on my computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I start the application. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start my database. So here I'm starting my Mongo database. That's going to get my machine started. And then in a separate screen, I'm going to start the Tayrona application itself. So I'm going to go to my location where I have downloaded my current version of the Tayrona application code. So I'm just going to go to my folder. I'm already in my Tayrona folder. And then I'm going to do some setup of my configuration. So I'm going to configure my environment variables. So I'm going to stop 1 minute while I configure my user, my password, and then I'm going to resume. Okay, I have already configured my credentials. Remember, you can do that by doing an export to your local variables, app user, your app Linux password to connect to the Linux database servers, and your app AIX password to connect to your AIX servers, and then the port where you want the application to run. Now that I have set up my application, I'm just going to execute my node server, and that's going to get my Tayrona server started. You can see there it's connected to my databases, and this is the local host where it's running. So I'm going to go to my browser, and there I'm going to go to my local host 8085, and that's going to give me the database status. As you can see here, this is from September 11, and you can notice down here on my screen that the date today is September 14th, so this is outdated. So here's how you update your database space. I'm going to go to settings, update elements, and I'm going to hit our job space. That's going to go to the database, the different databases, and that's going to bring up the information about the size of the campaign tables that we store in the or job schema. And if you refresh the page after a few seconds, you should see the updated information from the other databases. Sometimes it takes a minute depending on how good the connection is with your database. I'm going to refresh one more time. Okay, now here I see all the information about the or jobs in all the different databases. Since you can see here that everything else is empty because the information that I need, the rest of the information, it's going to come from the file system. So this is the only information that is coming from the database itself. So in order to get the information about the file system where the database resides, I'm going to go to settings again, update data elements, and then I'm going to update the database file systems. So again, this is going to connect to the different servers, but now directly to the file system where the database is. And it's going to bring information about the specifics of the file system that hosts each database. So now you have the information for all three databases. I'm sorry, for all five databases. So the 100% database that lives in the AIX machine, you can see here, right? The total size, how much is the space used. You can see the size of the campaigns, and you can see that the average use is about 83%, and you can see that there's 22 terabytes of space. So this is rather healthy. 1% also looks good. We can see here the aggregation system also at 80%. It looks healthy. And now remember, Arca's database, even though we have a single database, we separate the actual files in two different file systems because we added some extra space some time ago, and the resulting space got separated into two different file systems. So we have Archive Database DB, that's for file system 1, and Archives 2 DB is for file system 2. You can see that this is near 70%, and this guy is near 77%. You can see here that the max node is at 91%. That means that there is a skew problem, but there's a separate video on how to deal with skew problems. I recommend that you go and take a look at that. Once you have brought this information here, now it's time for you to navigate the information about the tables that you have collected. So if you go here, you're going to see the Or Job Space menu. That's going to show you the different databases, and it's going to make a breakdown. So if we had a problem, let's say in the aggregation file system, we can just open that aggregation file system, and then we can see the different tables there categorized by either by individual table or group by client or group by campaign. All right. So the first view that you may want to take a look at is by table, right? So that's going to give you all the tables. They're going to be sorted by size, right? So this is the size of the tables in gigabytes. And you're going to see that the client, the campaign name, and the contact, they're all going to be unknown, because what happens is that that information is not yet collected. So in order to collect that information, we already have that information in the local MongoDB database. We just need to uh, do some calculations in order to associate each table with each particular client and campaign. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to settings, update, and then I'm going to do the campaign tables info. That campaign table info is going to try to identify which client and which campaign this particular, each particular table belongs to. The way that the system is going to try to do that is by looking at the name of the table. And most of the time, if you look at that second element here, that usually has a campaign ID, right? Let me go back here to aggregation. So this process is going to take about 5 minutes. So I'm going to show you, parts of the result, what is running. So if I look at the system by table again, it's going to pick up that second element of the table name, and it's going to try to identify which campaign that particular table belongs to. And later on, it's going to try to identify which client that particular campaign belongs to. So I'm going to pause the video so that it completes the analysis, and then I'll go back and I'll show you a little bit more about how to identify the work that you have to do if you have a space problem. Okay, now the system has completed the update. You can see now that if I go to aggregation again, what you're gonna see is if I navigate to the aggregation by table, you will see now that you're gonna have populated information in these individual columns, right? So you're gonna see client, you're gonna see the campaigns. So I'll show you a couple more things that you can do if you want to work here. So first, let's take a look at that first item. So that first table, it has no information about the client, right? So that means that most likely this campaign was not created by a campaign itself. Maybe a user created that manually, maybe some developer. So this table is going to stay there in the database for a long time. Typically, we have identified a group of tables and campaigns that we do not want to delete. Most of the time, they are marked there, but if you have doubts, if you go to the settings and update data elements, I'm sorry, here's a do not drop list update. And you can see here's a list of tables that we're not supposed to drop. Technically, we're not supposed to drop any tables without the user's authorization. But if you want to see the ones that we have explicitly identified as tables that we do not want to delete, here are there. And if you want to update those so that you can see them while you're navigating the tables, you can also use this option on the settings, update data elements. And here's a do not drop campaigns table tag. If you hit that, and if I go again, I know, let me see at the aggregation. Let me see if I can spot one of those. So you're going to see something like this, where explicitly it's going to have that tag that says do not delete, right? But technically, we should have them all, but there will be some that are not explicitly marked. But if you have questions, we may need to reach or identify the user, okay? So now that we have identified, we have information about all the table and the campaigns, how do we know, what to delete or where to work on how to delete? Usually my preference is to go by, I take a look by client, because that way I know, who is using the most space. And you can see here in aggregation that we have a lot of the tables are unknown tables, right? And so we will have to work. If I click on that unknown, it's going to show me a list of all the unknown tables. So we will have to identify the users, which is harder if we don't have information about those. But most of the time, the place where we can work is with clients. So you can see here, client experience is the one that has the biggest space, is 3.2 terabytes almost. So if I wanted to see the tables from that client, so I would go either to that client, and that's going to show me, all the tables that that client generated. And you can see there's a big campaign here, the Quest X one time DA. So let's say you want to figure out if you want to delete this campaign. So the first thing you want to do is maybe you want to look at just the tables from that campaign. Most of the time, if you have one big table in a campaign, most likely you have other big tables. So if I click on the campaign, that's going to show me only the tables from that campaign. And you can see here, right, all of the tables from this campaign use 1.34 terabytes. See, you have big tables, they are all from the same campaign. But now you may want to know more about this particular campaign and its executions. Okay, you can see here that by the campaign ID, they're all from the same campaign. But if you see here on the table name, the run instance, you can see that some are from one run instance ending on 521, but here you have a different one. So there are more than one execution of this campaign. So if you want to know more details about the executions, you can click on that plus sign from the campaign. And if you click there, you're going to get all the details from this campaign, right? All the executions. You can see that the campaign ran in the aggregation environment. And you can see that it was recently run. Actually, it was run yesterday. Today is September 14, and this was run on September 13. So maybe these tables, are going to be there for a short amount of time. Maybe they're going to be backed up very quickly. So if you want to know more about the housekeeping operations associated with this campaign, you can hit that button here to get campaign tables operation details. So if I click that, what Tayrona is going to do is going to pick up all the tables associated with this campaign, and it's going to try to go to the housekeeping system, and it's going to try to identify the status of those tables. So if you see here, now you have additional information in this ops or operations column, and you can see that that large table, right, that final all, is scheduled for backup, right? That if I hover on top of that, it's going to tell me something about the date. So it's going to tell me the operation got completed yesterday. That means that the backup is completed. But now it's also going to tell me that if you have a schedule the delete of this table for 9/18. So typically the campaign tables are deleted 5 days after its execution. And you can see that for most of them, right, you're going to have that schedule operation for 9/18. So if you're not in a hurry, you can just wait for September 18 and wait for the delete operation to be completed. But if you are in a hurry, maybe what you want to do is you want to take this list of tables. You may want to contact, the campaign contact, Jared, and you can say, hey, Jared, can we, delete these tables early on, right? And you can do that by either, once you have confirmation by Jared, you can directly delete the table on the database, or you may want to, which is a rather more complicated operation, you may want to update the housekeeping process so that it bring the date of the delete earlier. So maybe you set up the delete date schedule to be today so that it gets deleted earlier. Okay, so that's how you find out the status of the tables, and that's how you find out what to delete or what to work on with the users to delete. So let me go back one more time. So if I go to this general list of tables, right, and I refresh that page, you can see that that operation information got transferred here. So now I can see information about this. So this is a fairly recent executed campaign, so maybe it's not worth to try to delete them. So maybe I can go and check another campaign. So let's say this one. So let's do that. So let me go and do the same thing. I'm gonna directly from here I can go to the campaign details. So if I click this one, you're gonna see the campaign operations. You see that it was running aggregation many times. You actually see it was running aggregation yesterday. So it's a recent campaign too. You can get the campaign table operations. And now you can see, right? So in this case, for example, this is a good example. The table was backed up. That means that the backup is already completed. But you see here, the delete operation failed for some reason, right? So that means that a red means that there's a failure. So if you look at the message, see operation was scheduled for 8:21, so it already passed, and the delete was failed. Also the same thing for this particular table. So in this case, you can, again, I can't stress enough, contact the user, double check that you are okay to delete. They're going to ask you, hey, this table has already uh, been backed up and the delete operation is failed. Is it okay if I delete it? If they say yes, then you go ahead and delete that. Okay. This other one you can see here, scheduled to be deleted in 9:18, so it's still there. So you may want to wait for that. This one is probably, they're all from the same 751 execution, so most likely everything from 751 is going to have the same situation, right? So 751, the rest are all 751. So this is gonna, you can just wait for it, but at least you can work on these two, right? These failed operation, those are good candidates to delete. So I'm sorry, this one. So if you need to release space, maybe you want to work with these two campaigns. Now, let me give you just a third example. In this case, I'm gonna go to a different file system. I'm gonna go to, let's say, aggregation. Other way of looking at the status is archives. I'm going to look at by the campaign. So you will see, which is the largest campaign in space use. So you see, 24,000 of unknown space. That means user created space. We typically are working with the user to try to reduce those tables. But in this case, the largest campaign is this one, 006CBP. And if I look at that campaign, you're going to see that, it doesn't look like a big table. It has 56 gigabytes, but they add up to 3.3 terabytes. So there's a lot of these. So 61 of those small tables. So if I look at the campaign operations and I want to see, where is this campaign running? You see they're trying to run it on 9:14. Maybe there's a couple of failed campaigns, so maybe it's fine that that campaign is there because maybe those tables are still from an execution of a particular campaign that is failed that the users may retry. Sometimes you may get this error, right? So you may be unable to get that operation details. Sometimes that happens. So in that case, you may want to directly contact the user and Sofina and say, hey, what about these particular campaigns? These sometimes happen when the campaign name has changed or the campaign ID has been modified. Sometimes it's harder to follow, but in any case, if you feel that's worth it, you can contact Sofina and ask her, hey, Sofina, we're looking at all of these campaigns coming from all of these tables coming from this campaign. Are we supposed to delete those? Can we keep them? And then you can have that conversation and then figure out what to do. And that's pretty much how you use Tayrona to work on space issues. So you, again, make updates so that you get information about the size of the OR jobs, the size of the file system, using the options on settings, update data elements or jobs first, then the DB file system next. And then in order to get details of the campaign and the client name, you use the campaign tables info. Once that's updated, you go here to the R job space, to the environment where you have problems, and then you start uh, finding information about the who's using the most space, and then you can start drilling down by looking at the particular campaign operations and finding out when this campaign run, and then you'll find out whether or not there's an action that you need to take, always going with the users first. Okay, with that, that's our short training about how to use Tayrona to work on space issues. Again, this is Francisco Nino from the Cloud Solutions team. Have any questions, let me know.